I genuinely wonder what is happening to society. What are the standards that we had for people back then? I think that society depends too much on technology. An example would be cell phones or personal computers. We use social media and we play video games, to distract ourselves from this world, or end up comparing ourselves to people who post their highlights of their day, which is exactly what social media is for. Or for people to talk, smack about other people on the internet anonymously. And I think that's a damn shame. I've seen reports of decreasing literacy rates. I myself have started reading because I feel like being able to hold a book and really connect with it and really understand it is, I wouldn't exactly say a lost art, but I feel like it's something that's starting to dwindle and become somewhat more rare in our time, because we have all this technology, we have like this encyclopedia of anything and everything you want to learn about, at your fingertips, that you merely press a couple buttons and you're there right away. There isn't much, I guess, you could say, work you have to put in, and if you want something, you can get it. It's at a snap of your fingers. And I feel like having that kind of power is something that is really starting to affect us, because I have family members, they let their, you know, 1 year old kid or like couple month old child, use the phone or watch TV, and I believe that they use and interact with this technology more than they genuinely interact with their parents. And I understand that the economy right now isn't doing quite well. I understand that many things have gotten extremely expensive and our wages sadly aren't able to keep up. And I know that they're trying as hard as they can, but I feel like at some point they're just going to have to accept that they literally have their child be raised on the internet than them doing, their job as parents, which is trying to raise their children. And like I said, I know that they are in, circumstances that I most likely can't understand, because I'm not a parent. But that's just how I see it. And I believe that with this evidence that, even children who don't know anything about this world are already being sucked in and having their lives, already dependent on technology for this constant stimulus. And, once they continue to grow older and live longer and experience more things in the world, they'll continue to chase this. And I think that this is making our society more divided than I would have expected, or many people do really realize. We can do anything we want at a moment's notice, and yet we can also talk to people, miles away from each other. You could not even speak the same language. You could be studying a language and, talk to someone from Thailand, and you could be from Canada. It's insane the amount of reach we have in this world, that we can talk to people from wherever. And I feel like we are more divided than we have ever been, even though we are more connected than we have ever been with the access to the internet, which is really available for millions of people. And I think that it would be important for us to try to learn and understand from the people before us, trying to read books, about like old philosophers. And many people might say, oh, that's just performative, you're just trying to make yourself look cool or whatever. And it's like, genuinely, I could care less about how people perceive me when I'm trying to read. I'm literally trying to learn about this world because it genuinely interests me about the people who were before me and how they lived their lives and how they saw their lives and what they want people to live their lives as. Because it's so interesting that we could have been, hundreds of years apart, and yet we still carry these same values, or we are, vastly different from each other in certain aspects in our lives. And another reason why I would say that I believe that society is starting to crumble is that the impact of COVID. I think the impact of COVID-19, I was in middle school around that time. Yeah, I was in my last year in middle school, which is in ninth grade, I believe. Yeah, ninth grade. And during that time, I didn't think that, oh, I'd be out of school for like, a year, almost 2 years. I really thought that, oh, I'll have this week off, these 2 weeks off in March, and then do online school for a little bit. And then I saw, my life change before my eyes, because everything was online, and, I was supposed to be learning, but genuinely, I didn't learn anything during that time. If anything that I could say that I did learn was that the internet genuinely has so much of a stranglehold on my generation and the future ones too, and especially my parents' generation, which I would not believe, because my parents lived like in the mountains in their country, and they didn't really have access to the internet. They were born way before it. They're not like fossils or anything, but they were born before the internet, so it's quite surprising to see them sort of be dependent on that for their entertainment. I'll be going into the rooms, talking to them, and I see them with the TV and like them scrolling like on Instagram or TikTok or something like that, or like Facebook. It's quite jarring because when I was a kid, I was told that I can't do those things, that it'll mess up with my brain, and they were right, because look at them, they're quite literally no better than me. And I don't mean to have any slack against my parents, but they taught me a lesson that they ended up themselves having to not even be able to follow, which is quite interesting. And like I said before, I feel like everybody, especially with COVID, I feel like that heightened our ability for everybody to be sort of more scared to talk to each other. I feel like this sort of stunted the growth of many of children, especially me, where birth rates are starting to dwindle as well. I think that many of us start to fear rejection and sort of become internalized, hate for ourselves, because we know that we can do so much more, and yet I won't even lie, I suffer from this where I will actively, blame things that were out of my control, and yet when I have things in my control, I see myself sitting there like an idiot, and I know I could do more, and yeah, I'm too scared to act because I don't want to take that risk, and that's something I genuinely want to change. There are people who are scared to talk, and their input could literally change their lives, at the extreme, or make people realize in their own errors or their ways, and I think gain more traction, which is amazing, because I think this is becoming a real issue if we're unable to fix this. And I think that a lot of us use technology to cope as well, especially with video games. I personally play video games, many hours a day. I would do it after work, I'd be tired, and I could find, video games that allow me to escape and really let myself relax and just like separate myself from society and from like, the hard days of work. I think it's amazing that we're able to have this media that allows us to truly relax, and sometimes I do believe that to an extent it is quite destructive, because there are many people that I've seen, like especially on the internet, who have, they could have done many great things in school. They could have gotten like the best kind of grades, they could have gotten the best test scores, they could have gone to the best colleges, and yet they're not satisfied with life, and they might use video games or substances in order to fill that void, because they feel that while their lives might be on paper perfect, and that they are perfect for whatever job they could get, they feel unfulfilled because they might not be something that they don't want to do. I think another reason that sort of drives that idea of us starting to give up on our future is that our lack in the government. I don't want to get too political, but I do believe that us common folk, the middle class, even like the higher class, people who make maybe $100,000 a year, possibly more than that, I do believe that we're being lied to, and our money, our hard work, tax dollars are literally being used for like the politicians and people in power in the government, and their revolving door for them to get into multiple agencies, no matter what crimes they have or have not supposedly committed. And we have to pay for it. We have to pay for their flights, and we have to pay for their eventual lustful behavior that they do while they're on these flights or to their destinations. And yet we're stuck with the bill, and we're lied to. We are told that it's because of the different political factions in our country, and this is why, and that, and everyone is just so terrified. And if anything, I think a lot of people are starting to sort of give up and just accept that this side is correct, or the other side is correct, because we genuinely don't want to have to think critically and understand that we're being lied to, that the people who are supposed to be taking care of us, and the people that we are taking care of, the government allowing them to continue existing, are lying to us, and that our hard work might not even amount to anything. At the end of the day, all we're doing is continuing this revolving door of hatred and suffering, and I do believe that many people are starting to see that giving up might be the answer. And I think that's a shame, because us humans have lived thousands of years, and we've gone through so many terrible things, like the ice ages, where I think it was like maybe a handful percent of us, like a couple hundred humans, were alive, and yet we were able to continue through. We can live through natural disasters and all these terrible things and man-made horrors beyond our comprehension, and yet we aren't able to understand and talk to each other because we're too scared, or because we fear the rejection that other people might give us. Although I have been talking about the quite negative aspects of the internet and their effects, I genuinely do believe that the internet has done more good than bad. I think it's just a shame that we're letting our future slip away between our fingertips, knowing that we could do better. But I can understand that many people feel that the world is against them. And you know what? I think at some point it's going to be against you. How can you be against yourself? You can't be helping yourself in a world of hate where you hate yourself as well. And I think that's extremely terrible that many of us, even children, I myself as a child went through that, and now as an adult, I'm starting to understand, this is just life. Life isn't perfect, and if it was perfect, we might never be able to understand what happiness truly is. Many people say that you can't understand happiness without going through suffering, but I think that's a topic for another day. But truly, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a nice day.